In case two, I'm faced with a deeply challenging situation. A client I've come to know and care for has recently abused her son. This revelation is emotionally difficult and ethically complex, especially given the broader context of her life. The client is under immense pressure. She receives no financial or emotional support from her ex-husband, who neither pays child support nor maintains contact with their son. Her job provides insufficient income, contributing to ongoing financial stress and a lack of external support. These stressors have significantly impacted her well being. Despite this incident, she is generally regarded as a good mother. Her love for her child is evident, and the thought of her son being removed from her care is distressing. However, ethical decision making requires us to balance compassion with accountability. This case invites us to apply core ethical principles while navigating the tension between empathy for the client and the imperative to protect the child. Let's explore how these principles guide our response. In this case, we're working with a client who is under significant financial and emotional stress. She's a mother who, despite her challenges, has committed an act of abuse. As case managers, our ethical responsibility is to intervene appropriately while respecting her autonomy. Let's start with respecting her voice. It's essential to give the client space to share her perspective. Even though the situation is serious, I must avoid silencing her. Her input matters in shaping the support plan. Next, I provide informed care. We explain all available resources, legal, therapeutic, and social services, so she can make educated decisions. Autonomy isn't just about freedom, it's about informed freedom. We must also avoid coercion. Support should be offered without pressure. Even when we're mandated to report, we can still approach the client with empathy and respect, preserving her dignity. Then there's the need to balance autonomy with safety. While we honor her right to make decisions, the child's safety is non-negotiable. Mandated reporting and protective measures must be clearly communicated and followed. Now, let's talk about ethical sensitivities. We must avoid undermining autonomy by not letting our personal feelings interfere. It's easy to sympathize with her struggles, but we must remain objective. We also need to guard against biases. Feeling compassion for the situation is natural, but it shouldn't cloud our judgment. Ethical practice requires clarity, consistency, and fairness. Fidelity calls on me to stay loyal to my role and commitments as a case manager. That begins with honoring our relationship and commitments. I show consistency, being present, reliable, and compassionate. Even though this client has made a serious mistake, she still deserves respectful care. Truthful support means I cannot gloss over what's happened. Abuse is serious. By gently but honestly addressing the gravity of the situation, I preserve both her dignity and the integrity of our work together. She needs to know that healing is possible, but accountability is a vital part of it. I must also practice protective transparency. That means I don't hide what we must be reported. I acknowledge that ethical fidelity includes following mandated reporting laws, even when that's emotionally difficult. It's not betrayal, it's professional honesty rooted in care. Reliable advocacy reminds me that she shouldn't walk this path alone. I'll advocate for supportive resources, counseling, financial aid, parenting support, but I'll never break confidentiality except when safety requires it. Lastly, balance compassion with duty. My loyalty to her doesn't mean shielding her from consequences. It means walking with her through them. Fidelity means serving both the client and the child's best interests, grounded in truth, care, and moral responsibility. As a case manager, beneficence means my job is not to just help the client, it's to actively promote her emotional, mental, and practical well being. That begins with the acting thoughtfully. I want to do good, but I must also be wise about what good looks like in this situation. This mom is dealing with a major stress, financial hardship, lack of support from her ex-husband, and pressure from work. I can acknowledge those struggles without excusing the incident that harmed her son. So I aim to prevent further harm by connecting with her resources like parenting classes, financial counseling, and emotional support networks. Through early intervention, I can reduce the chance that this situation worsens. That might mean scheduling regular check-ins, helping her set goals, and ensuring she receives follow-up care. But beneficence is a balancing act. I must be careful not to minimize what happened or go too far in punishing her emotionally or legally without consideration of the context. I support her as a mother, but I also protect her son. Non-maleficence means avoiding harm, whether it's intentional or accidental. In this case, the principle is especially critical because a child has already been hurt. As a case manager, my primary responsibility is to ensure that no further harm comes to him. That's the top priority. I need to assess the risk carefully. The client is under a lot of stress, financial pressure, a lack of support from her ex-husband, and a low-paying job. These stressors don't excuse the abuse, but they help me understand what might lead to repeated harm if not addressed. My role is to support the client without enabling harmful behavior. That means offering resources like parenting support or counseling, but also being honest about the seriousness of the situation. If safety is at risk, I must refer to the Child Protective Services or mental health professionals, even if that's hard step emotionally. It's also important to balance compassion with protection. I care about this client and I believe she has the potential to be a good mother. However, I must not let personal feelings cloud my judgment. I must act in a way that protects the child and respects the client's dignity. In this situation, justice calls for fair treatment that aligns with the client's unique circumstances, ensuring she is treated equally where appropriate and differently where ethically justified. Justice requires recognizing relevant differences and responding proportionally rather than applying a one-size-fits-all approach. This client is facing serious stressors, financial hardship, lack of support from her ex-husband, and emotional strain. These don't excuse the abuse, but they do help us understand the context. Justice calls for a proportional response. I acknowledge the harm done to the child while also recognizing the complexity of the client's situation. That means offering tailored support, like parenting classes, financial counseling, or therapy, while ensuring the child's safety remains the top priority. I also need to avoid bias. Just because I like the client doesn't mean I can minimize the abuse. My decisions must be based on ethical standards, not personal feelings. Finally, I must be transparent. If I recommend a different course of action than usual, I need to clearly document why, showing how I weighed the risk, needs, and ethical principles involved. Justice isn't about fairness, it's about clarity, accountability, and doing what's right for everyone involved. Honesty. The client has abused her son, which must be addressed honestly but with compassion. I would gently acknowledge the incident, showing empathy for her stress while making it clear that abuse is serious and cannot be ignored. I must explain my legal and ethical duty to report the abuse. This isn't about judgment, it's about protecting the child and helping the client get support. I'll be transparent about what happens next, like possible involvement from child services, so that she's not left in the dark. Throughout, I'll model integrity, being consistent, respectful, and truthful, even when it's uncomfortable. Working through personal conflict. In this case, I'm emotionally affected. I care about the client and I'm troubled by what she's done. So, first, I need to acknowledge my emotional reactions. I recognize that her crisis may stir up personal feelings, and I need to manage those intentionally to not let them guide my decisions. Next, I engage in self of the therapist work. That means reflecting on my own values, biases, and triggers. I ask myself, am I trying to protect her because I relate to her struggles? Am I avoiding action because I fear damaging the relationship? To stay grounded, I consult with supervisors or experienced professionals. Their guidance helps me make ethical decisions and avoid acting out of emotion or uncertainty. I also follow ethical and legal obligations. The American Association of Marriage and Family Therapists, AAMFT reminds me that my first responsibility is to protect the welfare of individuals and families. That includes reporting abuse and ensuring safety. I make sure to educate the client about the consequences of her actions and the steps I'm required to take. I do this respectfully so she understands her rights and responsibilities. Throughout the process, I maintain professional boundaries. I'm not here to rescue her. I'm here to support her ethically and responsibly. Finally, I document everything thoroughly. Accurate records protect both the client and me and ensure transparency in the case of future review. Christian Worldview Guide to Ethics. As a case manager, guided by Christian worldview, I approach this situation with both conviction and compassion. First, I must speak truth in love. Ephesians 4:15, New International Version. That means I cannot ignore the abuse, but I also won't shame the client. I'll address the seriousness of her actions with gentleness, encouraging her to take responsibility while affirming her worth and potential for growth. Next, I prioritize the child's safety. Proverbs 31:8 through 9 reminds me to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Reporting the abuse is not just a legal requirement, it's a moral duty to protect the vulnerable. At the same time, I believe in redemption and restoration. Galatians 6:1. I won't condemn the client. Instead, I'll connect her to resources like parenting classes, counseling, and spiritual support. I want her to know that healing is possible. I also strive to practice justice and mercy. Micah 6:8. Justice means accountability, but mercy means walking with her through the consequences with hope and compassion. I won't let her face this alone. Finally, I must maintain integrity and boundaries. Colossians 3:23. That means documenting everything, consulting with supervisors, and avoiding favoritism. Even though I care deeply for this client, I work as unto the Lord, staying faithful to both ethical standards and spiritual convictions.